Today on Gamer Chat we'll be reviewing THQ's Homefront. THQ have brought us previous popular titles such as the Red Faction series, Saints Row and the WWE series.
Homefront is a fictional first-person shooter set in the near future where North Korea and South Korea have joined as one and have invaded America. Our first impression of Homefront during the opening cutscenes gave us a real insight as to what the invasion was like. It painted the picture of the struggle that was about to come. The game does a real good job of making you feel like you're actually there and in the game, and that completing the missions actually matters. The game is mostly based within the ruined suburban of America, which gives it that real sense of desperation.
The story in Homefront is gripping and intense. From the get-go, the story will have you hooked as you are pushed into war-torn America and have little choice but to take up arms and fight back against the invading forces of Korea.
During your journey through Homefront, you will play as Jacobs. Now, the game doesn't really go as far as to show any real background to Jacobs, other than that he is a former Marine pilot, and there is no character progression through the storyline. However, this isn't really a huge issue, as you don't need to know any more than what the game gives you.
The only disappointment with the story is that as soon as you really start getting into the game and the story becomes ever more gripping, it ends. You could easily beat this game on the day of purchase within 4 or 5 hours of solid gameplay, which isn't a lot compared to other big titles, and because there is so much happening all around you, it just flies by so quickly. You feel a little disappointed and let down by the story life. Spoiler alert, but there might be a sequel in the mix, although nothing has been confirmed as of yet.
Although this game is quite short, it's still quite challenging. It's very realistic and the game flows well with only a few exceptions. In single player you can tackle the main story, or you can challenge other players online in the game's multiplayer mode.
Veteran FPS gamers will fly through this game with the use of flanking techniques and utilising cover effectively. However, you might find it a bit more challenging if you are new to the genre or if you prefer to go all guns blazing. Ammo is scarce in this game and you'll die pretty quickly, which adds to both good realism and adds to the difficulty. However, this is counterbalanced by the campaign being so short. Although the levels are difficult, there are plenty of checkpoints along the way and the loading screen isn't too long in between respawns, so you can always afford to try new tactics at each segment of the game.
For a realistic shooter to work properly you need to have all aspects of realism covered. Okay, so it's not one hit kills, but it's pretty damn close to make a good realistic game. Generally, it's about 2 or 3 bullets to down an enemy or 1 headshot. The only issue are invisible walls. They crop up a lot throughout the campaign. You take cover, peek out just enough to take the shot that you need to, and it ricochets off nothing. It just feels like the developers got a little bit lazy in this area. Also, there is very little in the sense of destruction of the environment, and your bullets, in regards to penetrating objects, it's non-existent.
The game flows perfectly, except for the occasions where you follow your fellow resistance members and they stop dead, waiting to receive a call on the radio, as if they were expecting the call to come through. Also, AI members of your party have to be the first to interact with certain doors and objects before you can use or pass through.
The multiplayer on this game isn't bad, it isn't great though, it's just mediocre. There aren't really enough people to bounce from game to game, you'll have to wait quite a while for the bigger games, but for the team deathmatch and the other small team games, it's not too bad. You can customise your loadout and you can spend battle points in game to acquire vehicles, special objects and special secondary weapons.
The levels on multiplayer aren't very well thought through at all. There's a lack of cover and a lack of interactive environments, which can make all of the maps seem a little too open in between spawn points in the centre of the map.
The controls are simple. If you're familiar to the Call of Duty series, the button layout is exactly the same, no difference at all. But the aiming seems slightly sluggish at times, but this can be fixed by calibrating your controller's sensitivity in the options menu. But other than that, the game controls are functional and they work well throughout the game.
The visuals are pretty damn good. There's not much to moan about, but because you're being fired upon a lot of the time, you may not see all of the visuals the game has to offer. The graphics on the environment and special effects are really good. Not quite AAA quality, but still pretty damn close. However, the character models seem to be a little dated. Not noticeable enough to make you look twice, but probably could have been a bit better. On a couple of occasions, certain buildings didn't render at all, which is probably a processing factor. It wasn't enough to ruin my game experience, but it was really strange.
In regards to audio and Homefront, the voice acting is pretty good, it's believable and it's well scripted throughout the game. The soundtrack is good for building tension, it helps set the scene when playing through the campaign, and the sound effects on weapons and the bullet impact sounds quite authentic and adds that sense of realism to your playthrough.
The missions where you are required to utilise vehicles and objects seem relevant, unlike other first-person shooter games where they're just putting them in because they can.
In conclusion, Homefront is a good first-person shooter with a lot to offer fans of the genre, but it isn't long enough to rival more successful franchises, and it doesn't really offer anything new to the genre. However, with that being said, I would still say it's definitely a good game to have in your collection.
We recommend Homefront as a buy.
Thanks for watching Gamer Chat, and please check out our channel for more videos.